Williams class, this is your arithmetic for today's maths lesson and the questions are as follows. 4 times 9, 5,432 plus 2,453. What is today's date as a Roman numeral? What number is next in the sequence? 23, 28, 33, 38, 12 times 7, 24 divided by 6. What is 400 divided by 10? What is 2,000 meters in kilometers? What is 8:45 p.m. on a 24-hour clock? And 72 divided by 6. So pause this video and have a go at answering these questions. Today's learning objective is, can I make shapes using squares? So by the end of today's lesson, you should know how to make a shape with a given area, and you should also know how to make different shapes with the same area. Now, what I would like for you to tell me is, which one is different? Have a go, pause this video and figure out which one is different. Now, the way to work this out is by seeing what the area of each of these squares, or shapes actually, because not all of them are squares, some of them are rectangles and some of them aren't squares or rectangles. The way to figure out which one is different is to calculate the area, and we do that by counting the squares. So let's start with shape A. What is the area of shape A? Let's count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So the area of shape A is 24. What about B? Have a little go at counting that. If you got 24, then well done, you are correct. The area of shape B is 24. What about C? If you said that C has an area of 24 as well, then well done, you are correct. What about D? So D is a little bit different with an area of 25. What about E? And E has an area of 24. So looking at these numbers then, which one would you say is different? I would say that D is different because D has an area of 25 and all the other shapes have an area of 24. So well done if you got that correct. Now, Connor has 6 squares of paper. What different shapes can he make? So what I would like for you to do is to grab 6 squares of paper, or use square Lego bricks if that would help you to work this out even better, and think or try to make different shapes using those 6 squares of paper. Off you go. Now this question, draw a shape with the given area. So part A has, we have an area of 7 squares that we need to make. And then for part B, we need to make a shape that has an area of 13 squares. So pause this video, have a go at drawing a shape with 7 squares, drawing a shape with 13 squares, and then when you unpause the video, you will see what I decide to do with my shape. Off you go. Right, so if I have been given this block of squared paper and I have to draw a shape with an area of 7, I am going to colour in very badly, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to colour in. I wonder if you can tell me how many squares I'm going to colour in. Let's see how many I've done so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do another one here. 6 and 7. Now notice how the shape that I've drawn out or coloured, the shape that I've made by colouring in those squares doesn't look like a square, doesn't look like a rectangle, it doesn't look like the shapes that you're used to seeing, but that's exactly the point of this exercise. It doesn't have to be a shape like a triangle or, you know, a traditional shape. It can be any shape that you would like. So the way to test if I've drawn a shape with an area of 7 squares is to count how many squares I have coloured in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've coloured in 7 squares. So that means that my shape has an area of 7 squares. If we move on to B, I have to draw a shape with an area of 13. Right, here I go then. I'm going to do this one. How many squares do I have to colour in then if I have to draw a shape with the area of 13? I have to colour in 13 squares. So I'm going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I have now drawn a shape with the area of 13 because I've coloured in 13 squares. 13 squares equals a shape with an area of 13. So very well done if you did the exact same, if you coloured in the amount of squares that it tells you to colour in. So for A, it was 7 squares, and for B, it was 13. Now, an activity for you to do. Use 6 square sticky notes or square shapes. So you can use post-it notes, or you can just use paper that has been cut up into squares, and you are going to try to make as many different rectilinear shapes with the squares as you can. So what rectilinear means here is shapes with sort of straight lines and they're made up of squares or rectangles. So in this case, we are going to be using 6 square either sticky notes or square shapes to make as many different shapes with those post-it notes or with those pieces of paper that you can. So have a go, and you can, instead of drawing some of them, you can make them and then post your drawings onto Tapestry. If you're drawing them or if you're using paper, you can take a picture of the models that you make and then post them on Tapestry. I'll give you an example of something I would make. So I would take one post-it note and put it there. I'd put another one next to it. So remember, you have to use all 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've used all 6 of my either post-it notes or square shapes, and I've made this shape here. And the way to test that I've made it correctly is by counting to make sure that I've used all 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So that's an example of a shape that I've made using those 6 post-it notes or square pieces of paper. Have a go yourself. Pause the video and try. Here is your independent work. You have 3 different questions. So pause this video, have a go at answering them, and then once you unpause, we will go through the answers together. So the first question says, draw 2 different shapes, each with an area of 8 squares. So 2 different shapes, and both of those shapes have to have an area of 8 squares. So that means that both of those shapes have to be drawn with 8 squares and 8 squares only. So I am going to start. Yours shapes might be different to mine, so don't be afraid if they are. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Right, that's my first shape. Very badly drawn squares, but I have drawn a shape here with an area of 8 squares, a shape that has been made up of 8 squares. So count it to check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's my first shape. And then I think I'm going to draw, I have an idea of the next one I want to draw. There we go, that's my next shape. So it looks different and it's been made up of 8 squares. Check it to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. So that is question 1, done and dusted. Now remember, if your shapes look a little bit different to mine, do not worry at all. Post them onto Tapestry for me to see. Question 2. And part A, add squares to this shape to make it into a square. So we have this shape over here and we need to make it into a square. So what I'm going to do then is add one square here, one square there, one square there, and one square there. However, it's not a square yet because a square has to look equal, and that at the moment looked like a rectangle, but now it looks like a square. And the way to check that it's a square is it should have the same number of squares going along this way and the same number of squares going along this way. And that's true because there are 4 going down and 4 going across. So what is the area, part B? What is the area of the square you have made? Count up all the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So the area of the shape we've just made is 16 squares. Now, part C is asking us, how could you make a larger square? How many more squares do you need to add? Show your working. So one way in which you could make a larger square is by adding a whole nother column of squares this way. So that means here you have 5, but then here you have 4. So you need to keep going and adding those squares. I'd like to see how you do this on Tapestry. So take a picture of your working out for this question and post it onto Tapestry for me to see that you have done this correctly. Then we have question 3, true or false. Part A, it is possible for 5 shapes to all look different but have the same area. Is that true or is that false? If you said true, then you are absolutely correct. All you have to do is just look at my 2 shapes here. Now, they're made of the same number of squares, but they do look a little bit different. One of them is longer than the other. Part B, if a carpet layer puts 25 carpet tiles in a square or lays them out end to end to make a line, the square has a larger area. Is that correct? If you said false, you are correct because you're using the same number of squares, so you'll get the same area. Now C, a rectangle with a length of 9 square meters and a width of 3 square meters has an area of 27 meters squared. Now, if you said that that is true, you are correct because one way to calculate area is to multiply the length and the width. So you do 9 times 3. And if you at home and at school are trying 9 times 3 and you get 27, well done, that is the way to calculate the area. Part D, it is not possible to draw a square with an area of 36 centimeters squared on squared paper. Now, I would like for you to, at home, try and draw a shape with, or a square rather, more specifically, with an area of 36 centimeters squared. And I want to see what you end up finding out. This is your little investigation, your maths investigation that you can try at home. So that is all from me for your maths lesson for today, Williams class. It was to make shapes using squares. I hope you enjoyed using different types of paper, using post-it notes, using square pieces of paper to make all sorts of different shapes. I'm really excited to see what you post on Tapestry for me to give feedback on, and I'll see you very soon, Williams class. Take care. Bye.